Hello everyone, today we are joined by Austin Bauwens, a graphic and motion designer with 10 years of experience and co-founder of Ravie.co, an animation-centric brand agency. Now, I've noticed that your passion goes all the way back towards high school. You started freelancing in high school, and you kind of rebranded a little bit. You started as like a Bolivian Designs, then Blueprint, which I have to say, Blueprint designs the portfolio for it. I saw it, and it's amazing. It's a very cool portfolio, I gotta say. And I was surprised too, because the stuff you've done in high school, I thought you did it in college. Like, I didn't really see the date on your LinkedIn description. Like, I assumed like, oh, this guy was doing this stuff in college. Like, you collabed with a YouTuber to design his apparel, you managed social media campaigns, and you helped develop a video game. And I was like, oh, this is college stuff. But I looked at the like date and the match with like college. I'm like, oh, this man's done it before college. I was like, wow, that's very cool. So just to kind of keep it simple, the first question is, what made you love design? Like, what kind of like sparked that interest?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story. It actually goes all the way back to junior high. I was in like 7th or 8th grade at this point, and my best friend at the time, shout out to Matt, at the time, he actually started his own he was making his own deodorant and selling it at school. And I was like, oh, this business thing sounds interesting. And like, he was getting all these people super interested in it. And so I was like, what can be my take on this? And I was running a Minecraft YouTube channel at the time. That's actually how I got started, was just, I needed to make make a banner for myself. And, as a 12-year-old kid, you don't have a credit card to be able to go and like pay someone else to do it, or necessarily the funds to get someone to do that.
Yeah.
So I got GIMP, which is just a free graphic software, and just started looking up some tutorials and making my own banners. And then from there, I was like, my friend's doing this thing, and I want to try and make a business too. So I was like, all right, what if I can like make a couple templates and I'll like put them up online for like 99 cents each or something. Like, it wasn't even that much at all. And then that plus like the site fee they were taking like 30% off that 99 cents. So it was like 60 cents an order or something. But I really love design, and I like being able to explore visually and express myself in that way. But I've really never considered myself much of an artist, at least not until more recently. I've always been more like analytical and engineering minded. I think that's probably what I would have been. I'd like to say I more like fell into design. Like, I had this love for business, and then I happened to just find my way. And like, this is something that's like very accessible to me right now, having a computer as a 12-year-old, and like being able to put these things up online and sell them was a lot easier. And to me, it had all of the resources from YouTube tutorials and things online already for me to be able to learn and explore, more so than needing more technical training that I might later on in life. It was just what I had access to at the time.
That's really cool. And you've done a lot of work in high school. It's very impressive. One of the things that I found really like interesting was that you've collabed with like a YouTuber, like you've designed for them. So I kind of dug up a bit like around your portfolios and stuff. Was it Zach, the YouTuber? Or was it a different YouTuber? It was him? Oh, that's cool then. I love the banner. I think he still has it, I believe, in the logo and stuff.
It was funny. I ended up doing 2 rebrands for him. So it was extra strange because he's probably like 15 at this point, and I was watching him when I was like 10 and 11. So by the time I got to 12, I was like, oh, he wants to do these like these more skit-based pieces of content, live action stuff, instead of doing Minecraft things, because he was tired of doing that. And so I just sent him an email on a whim. I found his email on his like business inquiries section of his YouTube, and I hit him up, not expecting a response at all. And he responded like the same day, being like, yo, this sounds great. I think I was just like, dude, I will rebrand everything for you. Just give me a shout out or something. Cause clout chasing, gotta get the bag.
Yeah, you need that credit. Yeah.
But it was also cool because I had watched his content when I was younger. So he hit me up after that. I had sent him a couple examples, and he really liked it. And while his rebrand to doing more live action content was pretty short lived, because I had made that introduction, I was the person he went to, and he was like, all right, I want to go back to my roots. Clearly this Minecraft thing was working, and he wanted to go back to that. He was like, all right, let's make it a little bit more sophisticated and spruce it up a bit. And it still looks the same today.
That's cool. So like, he found his audience, and he wanted your help. That's pretty cool. And what I liked about you was that not only did you like do this stuff for other people, you had some really cool passion projects. I know, looking back one of your old portfolios, you had this passion project called Wallpaper a Day. And I kind of scrolled through it, and I'm like, this is actually pretty cool. Like, I kind of wanted to like download the image and just like put it on my laptop. It looks so cool. Like the space one especially. I love the space one. It looked really cool because I'm like a space
I
guy. I
feel
love
that.
movies like that, like
Yeah.
Interstellar. I
Yeah.
don't know if you watched it. Yeah, it's really cool, and I like the graphic. I wanted to ask you like, um, what made you want to make that? Like, what was the
Yeah.
inspiration behind that?
Well, I mean, a lot of things I feel like on my journey are especially just from constraints that I had being I was in high school. So I had
Hmm.
some of the like smaller client projects and things that I was doing, but um, whenever I was at school, I didn't have enough time to necessarily be able to complete a client project or anything during the day. But I had a lot of classes where I had access to a computer and I was on the computer for that class. So I would try and finish up whatever tutorial the class wanted me to do really fast. And then I was just like, all right, I got to make a wallpaper at some point today. And that was just like, it was a way for me to just keep practicing while I was like otherwise off the clock because I had to be at school. So it was a way to like keep doing the stuff that I wanted to do and have it be a pretty like low touch point thing where it was just like, all right, I can do this in 30 minutes or so.
That's pretty cool. And you stuck through freelancing for like quite a bit. I mean, because you like rebranded like, a few times. I wanted to ask about your like kind of like the interview process with
Yeah.
9 Miles Media. Like, what prompted that decision from going to freelancing and then entering
Yeah.
that agency?
So by this point, I know that I'm going to NC State. I had applied to colleges and that was the school that I wanted to go to. And I knew I was in Houston. I grew up in Houston. I didn't know anybody in North Carolina. So I was going to try and make friends and connections however I could before I got there. So I actually made this like celebratory graphic for like the incoming College of Design 2023 class, and I posted that on Reddit and Instagram and a bunch of other places. And one of the guys at 9 Miles, their chief operating officer, he just happened to see it on Reddit, or somebody had forwarded it to him, and they had been looking for a motion designer for a while. And so he just slid in my DMs on Instagram and was like, "All right, hey, we have this big project coming up. Would love to get your help on it." And then the funny part was there really was no interview process, like formally anyway. It really was just like I worked with them on this project. So they were a freelance client for a second, and then they offered me a job right after that. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go to college, and it could be cool to have like this more traditional experience of going to an agency and just seeing what that's like, because I had only ever worked for myself up until that point. And so yeah.
That's really cool. So like getting that exposure really helped you get that
Yeah,
position.
basically that was it. I just posted something that I made online, and then they were like, all right, this is cool. And there was just I had a match there already because that's what they were looking for.
And going to that
Yeah.
new environment, I bet it must be different because you're used to doing stuff yourself. You're being the one with like the creative control there. How was it? What changes did you see when working at an agency? Was it a good experience? Was it kind of challenging getting used to that new environment?
Especially as someone who had worked only for myself for so long, it definitely was interesting having people to have to report to that weren't just the client, because I was so used to being able to just go straight to whoever the decision maker was. But now I had like this other layer that had their own opinions and feedback and those sorts of things before we'd even get to the client. And so that was a bit of a learning curve, as there was always this internal feedback round before I was ever going to have it sent to a client. And so at times it could be frustrating because I was like, the actual client wouldn't even say this. So like, why are we doing this? I don't know. But like, I understand. And I mean, we have things like this now at the company where we have an internal feedback round, because it's just so many people working on something that you just want to all check on it first before you're sending it off. But it I mean, yeah, it was definitely a bit of a change, and I think one of the biggest things that it was purely just having access to more, I'd say, more sophisticated clients than I was used to. I mean, I was in high school, I was working primarily in like very new industries that weren't super formalized yet. Like a lot of the people I was working with were in esports and gaming, and those just weren't super big yet. And so getting to go work at 9 Miles and immediately working with like this huge construction building brand with all these subsidiaries and things was like, okay, this is like a Fortune 500 company. This is a little strange. Or like having cool opportunities where a company hits them up because they have a little bit more exposure in the area to say, hey, we actually want to do a banner ad at PNC Arena that plays during periods in hockey and those sorts of things. And I was like, well, that sounds cool. I haven't had anything in an arena before. So we had some projects like that where it was just experiences I didn't have access to because I didn't have those kind of connections yet. So they were just a good conduit for that, really.
That's really cool. And I noticed that like kind of during that time, like ending your position over there as like a
Yep.
on a design lead, you kind of started man,
No, you're
I'm
good.
sorry. Okay. It's
Yeah.
Ravie, right?
No,
I'm
yeah,
so
you're
sorry.
good.
It's Ravie, right? Okay, so I'm sorry. So like around that time you started Ravie with Noah. What's the story behind that? Like, because I noticed that Noah went to the same college and same department as you in design. How did that like
Yeah.
interaction go?
So in the same way that 9 Miles approached me because I was trying to reach out and make connections before I left Houston to come here, I was doing the same thing with students. A lot of the students were putting things in their Instagram bio saying like College of Design 2023 incoming or something. And so I was able to like find those people on Instagram and then add them to Snapchat groups, or like we actually ended up making a Discord server for all of the College of Design students coming in that year. So Noah was going to school early. He was going to be there for summer start. It was just an early start program to get some of the prerequisite classes out of the way. And so in the meantime, I was just connecting with all of these people and had already kind of formed a small friend group before I was going to get to the school, which is what I set out to do. So that worked out nicely. And Noah had done a lot of just creative work in general. He was much more of an artist than me. He worked in woodworking and metalworking and all sorts of different things. And he had started to dabble in branding and static graphics like I started with originally. And so when I come in, I'm like, here's my work, blah, blah, blah. And we're chatting about it a bit. And he's like, wait a second, what's this motion design thing? Like, we can make this stuff and we can also make it move. Like, that sounds cool. And I'm like, it's pretty, like, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And so we would just sit in my dorm and I'd have some of my project files open. We would just walk through it. And he was just fascinated with the industry as a whole. And we were both really just getting more exposed to the more professional motion design industry as opposed to like the small niches I was working within before. And so we start Ravie actually quite a bit before I leave 9 Miles. I was trying to balance everything for a really long time, and obviously that didn't quite work out. I had to end up choosing. So spoiler alert, Ravie is the thing that happens. But COVID hits in my second semester of college, so the second half of my freshman year, and that's just like a bunch of connections just kind of severed because I go back to Houston. And so I'm like still doing my classes and whatever I can online, but Noah eventually reaches out to me and just wants to play some games and things. And I actually had already been contacted by this other guy named Chris, who was he and I were right at the top of this niche motion design industry, working with lots of software companies in the sneaker reselling space, which is not something I'm really involved in, but they like the motion design work, so there was a fit. And so he hit me up and wanted to talk about potentially forming a collective to work together, because we're like, all right, if we're both at the top of the space, we can have sort of a monopoly here a little bit. And that sounded really interesting to me. And so Noah's hitting me up at the same time. And I'm like, wait a second, why don't we just have a trio instead? And so Chris doesn't know Noah at all, but I'm like, all right, let's bring him in and let's see how this goes. Because I was like, what if we can do this with 3 people? That's more hands on deck and we can do bigger projects and all that stuff. And so time passes. We're working on some pretty small projects throughout that year. It's actually funny. Zach, that YouTuber that I worked with, was the first person to hit us up as a collective. He wanted to start a fitness app during COVID, and it was going to be like FaceTime, but doing 1v1 cool. fitness challenges. So we were tasked with making like a whole character design system, and then having to animate the character doing like 30 different workouts that would show up on the app, as well as doing like their branding system and a bunch of other stuff. But anyway, that happens, and then Chris is in school for product development and product design and those sorts of things. So he's more on like the track to go intern at Google and those sorts of places. Whereas Noah and I were pretty set on like this motion design thing and this design like agency is what we really want to do. So we end up kind of going our separate ways there. It's really me and Noah that keep going on Ravie, and Chris goes off to do his own thing. Mm-hmm. And then by that point, we're at I'd come back to Raleigh. It was my first semester of sophomore year, but everybody's online. That's just how it was at the time, you know?
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is Noah and I start to get a lot more inquiries with bigger companies. Like that first January or February, we're working with Toshiba. We went from working with like this brand new startup and whatever, and like I'm only working with these smaller companies, to all of a sudden these Fortune 500 companies are dropping on our doorstep, which was something I'd only had at 9 Miles before. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is really starting to be something real. And we continue to get more and more clients. And at the same time, I'm like also still at 9 Miles and I'm still in school. And it's like, we get to the point eventually where like our professors are getting mad at us for having to miss class to go take client meetings and things. And I'm like, guys, we're doing the thing that you want us to do with the degree. What do you mean?
Yeah. You're following your passion.
And so what ends up happening is Noah and I really get to the point where we're like, all right, we have to make this decision. Like school is clearly the thing that is taking up the most time compared to the work that we're doing. And a lot of the stuff that we were getting from the program was stuff that like we'd already learned before, and like we're really just in it now and we need that professional experience. So long story short, Noah and I end up deciding to leave school at the end of our sophomore year. So we didn't finish our degrees or anything. We would be seniors this year if we had stayed. But then after that, we're like the summer of 2021, I guess that's last year. Yeah. And so we're at the summer of last year, and I'm starting to, it's a pretty clear trend. I had the same sort of thoughts with school. I'm like, all right, I really want to focus on this Ravie thing. I need more time for this. And so the same thing sort of happens with 9 Miles, where I'm like, I'm not really getting the creative freedom that I want anymore. And I like am having bigger projects than what I'm getting at 9 Miles now on my own with Noah. But like, I can't make a whole business work if I'm only working at Ravie, on Tuesdays and Thursdays out of the week, and 9 Miles Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's just not going to cut it for hours. So around September of that year, I had just decided to pull the trigger, and I was like, guys, I just got to go do this thing on my own. And we went our separate ways, and it's been Ravie full time ever since. So actually at like a year now of doing it completely full time. So
that's really cool. And it kind of reminds me of like those like billionaire stories where they have this idea in college and they're working on it, but it's hard to balance that with school. Right. So they drop out and they start making it and they get big later on. It's really interesting. And one thing you kind of touched on that was also interesting was the COVID-19 pandemic, because when I was looking into it, especially when you started, it was around 2020. It was May, I believe. And I was like when there was lockdowns and stuff. And I assumed that it'd be hard to get clients because during that time, a lot of like different companies were like decrease their marketing budget. So you didn't face any struggle with that, like getting clients and stuff?
See, we were a little silly in our pricing originally, so we were charging pretty low compared to all the competition, so it made it a lot easier. I mean, unknowingly, although I guess it's a good strategy too.
Yeah.
But that let us get in and get some work under our belt with some of those larger companies, and at the same time, a lot of companies, despite lowering their marketing budget, they also didn't have access to live action content that they otherwise normally would. So there was a much larger reliance on motion design content and animation, which left like it all kind of evened out because like the marketing budget's lower, but at the same time, it's like because it's shifted over to this other thing instead.
So do you think that like should companies, like especially during recession and stuff, and during recessions, should they decrease their marketing budget, or should they just like adapt to it and kind of put it into motion design or areas like that?
I mean, it really depends on the type of business and what they're doing. Like there are some things that motion design just isn't as well suited for as live action. Like if it's a brand where you really just need to connect with a person and it's really just like a lifestyle sort of thing, it's like you can animate characters all day and try and make people relate, and like that works fine, but sometimes it's just easier to record somebody acting with a camera, you know? And then with overall reducing marketing budgets and things, there's an interesting trend happening in the motion design industry where there's different levels of organizations. So there's like the big agencies up at the top here, and then there's like mid-level studios, which is where we're at, which is like smaller teams, and then there's freelancers. And so it used to be that pretty big difference between those three tiers, but now, especially as the economy is causing people to be a little bit concerned, the agencies charging hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars for things, and with mid-level agencies or studios charging like tens of thousands ish. Freelancers are, instead of charging a couple $100 a day, moving up to sometimes being able to replace studios on some projects. Like some companies are working just with a freelancer. And it's the opposite with the agencies, where they're often getting passed up by the studios or the freelancers because their prices are just so high by comparison. So there's this interesting crunch where it's like studios are kind of starting to be like the place to be in terms of pricing and overall leanness of staff and all that. So you're able to get more bang for your buck now than ever in this space, I think. And I don't know, it's a good time to be in motion design is what I would say.
So yeah, that's really cool. It's like you kind of picked you kind of had the
Mm-hmm.
perfect timing in terms of starting your business. And I'm judging from your live streams on YouTube, motion design can take a very long time. Can you kind of give me a day in your life of working on the business development side of Ravie?
Sheesh, that's the thing we've really been figuring out over the past few months, because it was just me and Noah for a very long time, up until 3 months ago. And then ever since then, we've added now 4 people onto the team. So we're now a team of 6.
Oh, that's cool.
And so it used to be that there's this nasty ebb and flow of when we get projects, I don't have enough time to go to be able to sell more projects or make introductions or any of that stuff. And so we're working on those projects, but then when we're done with them, it's crickets because we haven't been able to do any of that work. Or it's the opposite, where we're having to spend so much time trying to sell and get projects that we're not able to spend as much time as we'd like to on the projects we already got. And so now that the responsibilities are a little bit more clear and I'm able to delegate a bit more, a typical day, it's more of a week structure. So for me, I usually post one of the shorter animations that I make on a live stream on a Sunday night. And then on Monday, that's when there's like the bigger response. And Tuesday, like that wave of people is coming in and looking at that and hitting us up for new inquiries and things. So the beginning of my week is mostly emails and scheduling meetings and just making sure that everybody's gotten responded to and all of that stuff. And then checking in with the clients that we do have already. And then it's more towards the end of the week where whatever I can be doing in the trenches on projects, I'm in there doing that. But now that we've got like the bigger team, we're able to have people who are working on the projects throughout the entire week, and then I'm coming in when I need to. But it kind of varies project to project. But that's really what it is. I mean, I usually spend the beginning of each morning. For a while, we were like tracking our social metrics individually. So I'd be in there like typing in each of the responses to like the most recent video and those sorts of things. We kind of stopped doing that recently because we understand the trends now. But really, it's just lots of responding to emails. I don't really have to do a whole lot of outreach on our end anymore because we're really just doing a lot more show, don't tell, where we're just putting our work out there or like talking about our skills and showing people that we know what we're doing. And then in turn, we don't have to send, oh, that happens. Ignore that. I'll be.
It's fine, yeah.
And
no,
then,
you're fine.
Now that we've got it to where we're just putting out these videos and things, the people are coming to us instead looking for projects. And so we're not having to send out marketing emails and things, which we did do for a long time. When there was a lull in projects, it would be my job to go and send like hundreds and hundreds of emails to all sorts of companies. But you'd be shocked at just how low the response rate is, even whenever it's like a really authentic, like trying to get in with a joke sort of email or like anything that would seem more personable. It's just, people just don't really want to get sold to. Shocker. Who would have thought?
Yeah, like I could kind of relate to it. I know it's like not the same thing, but when I'm sending out like invites for the podcast and stuff, I'm kind of sending it from people who have like just entry-level jobs into marketing fields or other fields in business, from finance and managing, and then up to like VPs of like global brand development, stuff like that. And I'm like, I hope they answer. Maybe not. Maybe they will. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. But I'm just happy to get who I can get, and people that I connect with, like, I know they have like really cool careers and they have like a good story to tell.
Well, and the people that do respond are bound to be ones that'll probably give you a more interesting story anyway. So there you go.
Yeah. And go into your process of motion design, because like I noticed that like when I was looking at your work through Instagram, because that's how kind of just like I just started scrolling and just looking at your work. I really love the music behind it. I know for one of your projects, it was a kind of a birthday reel for your first birthday of Ravie. And I love the dramatic violin, the dramatic violin sound matching with the animations, the flow of it was so cool. So I gotta ask, like, how do you decide on those, on like some technical parts? So for example, the color palettes.
Color palettes. Oh boy, Noah is more of the color man than I. I have a good amount of color knowledge at this point, but I don't take it in as much of an artistic direction as some people might, where it's really focused on like the color theory and like let's really get into it. To me, it's really just like an instinctive thing where like I've seen a cool color palette on this project that somebody did, and I've seen a cool color palette on the project that this person did. So I can like be like, I want this blue from this project and this red from this project, and just kind of like mix and match things and take inspiration from all over. But like for the smaller animations that I'm making each week now, it really is just like I've got my range of color palettes that I'm using for those, and so I've got kind of like a bank stored at this point of just like, this would be good with like a red,
that's pretty cool.
red, blue, and white or something. I don't know. It really is just like when you get the vibe of everything else in the project, that's something that sort of clicks into place.
And is that the same thing with the music? Do you kind of already have a bank stored of music, or do you put more time and effort into finding what music you want to choose for your projects?
I'd say that's usually actually the first part of the project. Not necessarily on client work, because usually it's still an audio focused thing. Like we're usually looking at a voiceover or something for the beginning of those. But if there was no voiceover involved, then typically, yeah, it's just we're trying to find the piece of music that works well. And now that we're working with some sound designers, will need to at least find a piece of music that we can give to them as reference so that they can build out their custom sound afterwards. But that's really what helps us set the tone for the whole animation and start to like, I mean, Noah and I look crazy while we're doing it, but a huge part of our process really is just like listening to either the VO or the music with our eyes closed. Like, in the movie Ratatouille, he eats the cheese and the strawberry at the same time, and then he's like seeing all these different things in his head or whatever. It really is kind of like that, where we're listening to the music and we hear like something like, I wish I had more audio terminology to actually be able to describe it, but it's just like we've listened to so much of it, at like so much music and things at this point, that we can just like see what movement should happen depending on the sound, which makes it a pretty interesting process to where like that the non-visual thing is really what we're starting with most of the time.
That's really cool, and I can kind of relate to that a little bit because I do more live action stuff. Like I make some videos for my club. Deck is like a little business club, and I always had like a love for music because growing up I had like different genres. I listened to like rock, rap, and I love expanding on like the different genres there are. And I always just like every time I listen to a song and it gives me certain like feel to it, I kind of close my eyes sometimes not, but I can just like imagine shots in my head that follow the music, that follow the flow of it. So that's a really cool thing. So I noticed on your website, I was like kind of reading through it, seeing your work, and kind of seeing like the kind of in a way the mission statement of it. And you mentioned that a lot of like the design is not just Us and O's, that it's just very cool, but there's a lot of meaning. It has purpose in it. Can you like elaborate more on that?
So at the end of the day, I mean, it's cool to make people think like, oh, this thing looks cool, but we really want people to leave with like an emotional response to it, whether it is like an oh that's cool or whatever. We just really want them to remember it. Our philosophy has changed a little bit. Originally we had a really huge focus on, we got to like use all of these different frameworks to determine that like there's these 4 different types of consumers. There's the practical consumer and the action consumer and social and emotional and whatever. And in order to make effective Google ads, basically, to where we're like, we can guarantee this many conversions or like this many sales from this video, and like trying to quantify our value that the videos are bringing. And we're at the point now where really we're just like, it just needs to be something people connect with. And so what we try and do is not necessarily just wow them visually. Obviously that's an important part, but especially when it comes to things like script or overall just messaging that's being used, that's a huge part of the focus for us, rather than just let's make something that looks cool for ourselves and looks good on our portfolio. We want to make stuff that we would actually be like, okay, that's an ad I would listen to, rather than just something else among the noise of the billions of ads that are being made all the time, you know?
Yeah, it's really cool. And kind of going to this topic of YouTube, because I noticed you started a YouTube channel, and there you kind of post live streams of your animations. You do this challenge submission compilations, little YouTube shorts answering the questions, which I found very helpful when I was trying to make the interview thing. I was looking at them like, okay, that's a pretty cool question I should ask. Like the color palettes one, I saw your YouTube show. I'm like, okay, I should definitely ask him this one, and the music one as well. But kind of going around the YouTube channel, did you start it as kind of a way to gain exposure, or was it more into kind of making that community?
So a lot of the community and the benefits that we're reaping now from it are just a complete afterthought. Like we're really glad to have them now, and we can target that a bit more. But originally I was just making the short animations because I was tired of the more corporate stuff we were doing, and I needed an outlet creatively for that.
Yeah.
And the problem that then arose was they were getting so much traction that like every other comment was someone asking for a tutorial, and I was like, I don't have enough time to edit a tutorial and put that together, but I'm like, I know that this would be helpful to people, so I'm like, what would somehow be the easiest way for everyone to be able to get what I'm doing without me necessarily having to explain it? And I'm like, well, I could just let them see everything that I'm doing as I'm doing it. And that seemed to work really well, because then that recording stays up. And so anytime I get a question about like, how did you do this? How'd you do this? Here's the live stream. There you go. It's right there. There you go. I explained it. It's fine. But the problem that I'm running into now, and I mean, I just did an animation that I posted last week, but I didn't stream it because eventually it got to a point where like when I was making the animations originally, I was able to just have a spark of inspiration at like 2 a.m. and be like, oh, all right, I'm going to make something. This is going to be good. I'm really excited for this. But when I had the live streams and people were expecting those, then it gets to the point where it's like, all right, now I have to choose like, am I going to spend sometimes 10 hours of my Saturday just sitting there in front of a camera, or am I going to like spend time with like my girlfriend or other friends, or go and do something for myself? I don't know. And so that expectation really started to weigh on me a bit, to where I just am not able to spend that much more time on the weekend on top of my already pretty full week. So now what I'm going to be doing instead is still taking that philosophy of like, I don't really want to have to make this tutorial and really edit it down. And it's not purely from a just like, that's going to take a lot of time from me standpoint. It's that I really feel like I shouldn't be the one to cherry pick which information people would need, because I'm not going to know what people don't know, because it's a lot of that stuff that I do like about the live stream is that people are able to pick up on things that I would just be like, oh, well, this is an instinctual thing. Like I wouldn't even think that people wouldn't know this necessarily, but people are able to learn and pick up like exactly what's happening without having to ask me specifically. You know, I can really let them see whatever. So now what I'll be doing instead is shorter, like 2-hour just walkthroughs of the project after I've already finished it. And that way I've also had time to be able to reflect and be like, I did it this way when I was making it, but it could be done way faster this way or like more efficiently or whatever. So it gives me more time to reflect on it too.
Gotcha. And it's really cool too, because a lot of your content's kind of like easily digestible. You make these like long forms of content, and then you can just like cut it up and just post them on either TikTok or on your YouTube Shorts, and there you can like answer the questions and start creating that community. Well, what's also really cool is that I found is that you're gaining this audience of people that are very interested in motion design, or people that are already doing it and are learning more from you. Because although your live streams are very long, the people who really want to enjoy it, they'll watch it all. I mean, if I was thinking like spending a day of my week and just like watching one of your live streams, because like I'm kind of interested in motion design and I like to learn more about it. So I'm like, instead of just going like looking up a course online and having to pay for it or something, I could just go to your YouTube channel and just learn it from a person who's actually doing it. And it's a really cool thing. And going further with the community work, you started creating these animation challenges that have kind of garnered like a lot of attention and a lot of really cool submissions. Can you talk to me more about kind of that community? How could I frame this question? Can you talk to me like, what was the inspiration behind those animation challenges? Was that also like kind of in a way to make your community much more bigger?
Yeah. I mean, really, we realized that, okay, we're starting to get a lot of traction on not only the loops, but also those streams. And so it was like, okay, well, what can we actually do to provide more value and like actually have people be able to interact with this rather than just like asking me questions in a chat? And we were like, well, we have a pretty strong philosophy here that like the easiest way that we've learned to do a lot of things is just by doing them. Like we really just throw ourselves in the deep end on a lot of things. Like when I was starting to do design when I was 12, it wasn't because I was watching a bunch of tutorials and things necessarily. I mean, I did when I needed to, but I would seriously just spend days in After Effects just going through like every single effect and being like, what's this one do? I don't know. Let's try it on something and figure it out. And so we wanted to be able to give people a way to apply what they might have been learning without having to deal with all of the like imposter syndrome of, I don't think I'm going to be able to make something that good, or with the inability to necessarily come up with a topic or a brief for themselves. Because that's the hardest thing. For a lot of people, I mean, Noah has a good metaphor that he's used for it before, but it's like giving someone, it's the difference between giving someone an entire beach and saying, okay, build a sandcastle. And then they have questions like, well, where the hell am I supposed to build the sandcastle? Like, what is, I don't know what to do with this. What size? I don't know. And then instead giving them a sandbox and being like, it can only be this big. You can use this much sand and blah, blah, blah. And now they have those constraints they can work with. And so it makes it a bit easier for them to be able to take that creativity, and now they're like, okay, but it can't go outside of this. So I can at least start on something because I know that I have to have it this way or whatever.
That's very cool. And kind of just wrapping up the interview a little bit, I kind of want to go back into your agency and kind of talk about like your goals, your plan to expand it.
Absolutely. Oh, and I also do just want to note that the challenges are also really fun way for us to be able to recruit. That's how we've gotten all of our new team members, is because we're getting a direct line of like, here's all these people that are otherwise not showing their work off to people. And it's like, well, if they're really good, obviously we want to work with them. So that's been another like cool side effect of it. And it's been especially interesting to then see like the winners of the challenges are like just submissions that really resonated with people. The next day on their Instagram, like all of these top motion designers are suddenly following them. And I'm like, I see what you guys are up to here. Sneaky bunch.
They're trying to steal your. They're trying to steal your
future
employees.
What I'm saying. I'm like, no. Where you get them first. But in terms of what our goals are and where we see things going, it's a couple different roads that we can travel down right now, and that's a really exciting thing. So there's the client side of things where we keep doing the things that we've already been doing, making better and better videos that advertise for people. That's great. There's also the education side now, where it's like the streams are clearly doing well, and we can do things like make a course eventually, or work with other people to make a course, or start to do more produced tutorials. Like we want to start doing, I mean, in a way, there really aren't any other motion design agencies, at least this publicly, just showing what they're doing. And people are really resonating with that because we're just putting ourselves out as we are, and not trying to really market that much. The marketing is really just us talking and being ourselves. And so we want to capitalize on that as much as possible. So we're really trying to pivot the business to where we're like, we want to keep doing the animation and the business work that we're doing, but this content side of things is also incredibly interesting and valuable to us, and clearly is valuable to others as well. So it's those two sort of paths that we're trying to just see how far we can go down on either of them. And then like really long term, we see like not really ever needing a super huge team necessarily as like a core team, but wanting to be able to have some of the more business oriented parts of it be able to be more focused. So as we scale, maybe we have like a team of 10 is on the East Coast and a team of 10 is on the West Coast. And it's not necessarily because like they only work with clients in those regions, but like the East Coast office works with tech companies a lot more, and the West Coast office works with lifestyle brands, or like one of the branches has a live action arm, or those sorts of things. It's like that sort of cool. Like sort of franchising, but not really. We don't really have like a super detailed plan or anything on it, but that's the general idea for now.
I like the vision because you've already you've already made this community, and it keeps on growing because social media, everybody's gonna start watching it. It's gonna pop up on their pages and stuff, and you're already getting people that are very interested in working for these teams, and it's just kind of growing itself. And you don't have to pay for marketing because you've already have social media. You already have your YouTube channel, and it's growing itself. Do you ever think of starting a Ravie YouTube channel? Like it's like the official agency YouTube channel?
See, we're just trying to make that my channel. Like that's the thing. We don't want to have to like build up a whole other audience, right? So, but we also don't want it to be the Austin Bauwens channel because it's not just me, obviously. So at some point there's a transition where it's like it's not the Austin Bauwens channel anymore. Like once we start making more content and it's up on there more frequently, that's the Ravie channel. But like it makes more sense to us to just like take that one over rather than having to start another one from 0 subscribers up, you know?
It's really pretty cool because it'd be more personalized as well. Like they're going to you, and it just feels much more comfortable than just watching just a company's YouTube channel. and not really feeling that connection. So yeah, I understand it now how that would work. It'd just be better to just grow your YouTube channel because you feel that more connection there, and which in turn builds that community.
And you can pretty clearly see that if you look at my Instagram versus the Ravie Instagram. Like we can post the same stuff, but people just so much more clearly connect with a person over a brand, and it's just that's what it is. And it's always made sense to me because despite me having started like when I was younger, I thought that was the sophisticated formal thing to do to like be a business. You have like your personal account and your business account. And so I'd have my Blueprint Studios account, and my Oblivion Designs account, and whatever. And I was like, I don't understand why people aren't following this. I don't get it. And now I'm just like, well, I'm not following like Coca-Cola or Pepsi in my free time. Like I'm not just trying to get advertised to. So of course I'm not going to do that. And I don't think that other people really would either. So this just like, and there's a lot of like buzzwordy things about building in public and those sorts of things, but I really think that that's what we're trying to do. Like if I had it my way and it was actually practical, I would be so interested if I was like back to being like 13 when I had like just started being like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I want to do this thing. If I had the ability to like just have a live stream running all the time to just like see what's happening in the Ravie office and like hear those conversations and things and just like watch a business grow, that sounds so interesting to me, given it's not exactly practical to
just
do
wear
that.
a helmet, put on the GoPro, and just start
Seriously.
recording yourself every
That's
single
what I'm
day,
saying.
24 hours a day. So much content from that, man. You'd get
It'd
millions
be
of
so
views, man.
cool. That's what I'm saying. I mean, of course, you have like when you have clients that have, you know, if the project is for a product they want to launch and they don't want to launch it until this day, it doesn't really work to be showing all of that publicly. But I want to be able to do that with every other aspect as much as we can. So if I had it my way, it would be everything, though. But we're seeing what we can do to just put things out in the open and just have people be, I don't know. We try and think of it more as like a motion design's like sports to us a little bit. It's all a big game where it's like, we want to be the team that people are rooting for in a very public way, where it's like we get a new client and everybody's like, hell yeah, we got a new client, that's so cool. Or like they just signed this new person onto the team and it's like, oh my god, look at this, is crazy, like the team's getting so stacked and blah blah blah. And just have it be more this fun thing, and like everybody's just like, how far can this thing go? I don't know, because that's how we feel about it.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I love the transparency too, because I remember I was scrolling through your Instagram and I saw that one of your posts is about how much money you made. And my first thought was, they're actually saying how much money they made? Because like I used to think like in the business world, like you don't say how much money you're making, because that's like, you don't ask someone how much money do you make, because that's disrespectful. So when I saw that, I liked how much money, I was like, wow, they actually posted that. And a lot of the comments were like saying like, oh wow, this is great that you're posting this and stuff. And it's really cool because it's kind of like rooting for like the small guy. Like, yeah, he needs to go. That's all root for him, and it's just very interesting.
Well, and you know, it only stays behind closed doors if we like perpetuate that. There's all these like older agencies and things that they're not going to do that unless they're like a public company and they're traded, so they have to. But like a lot of people just aren't going to do that. So we're like, this is a way that would be easy to just be like, look at what's happening, guys, and just really be like all in. And now it's especially cool because we posted that like a little too early. Like we jumped the gun. Like it seemed like a huge amount of money for us at the time, but like it's probably what like a lot of the other agencies that we looked up to would make in like a month or something. And so, but it was a huge deal to us. But by the end of the year, we had hit like 100K. So I was like, well, wouldn't it have been nice to post that then instead of the 80? But oh well. But
you get that one.
I know. I'm like, look at that. We can add that extra digit in there. But now it's cool, especially as just like a record keeping thing for us, is we get to look back and be like, this was a year ago. Like, this is where we were a year ago. Like, look at what we're doing now. Like, for this year, we're already looking at doing like $500,000 for revenue in like our second. Yeah, it's like 5 times growth. I'm like, this is crazy. Why wouldn't people want to watch this? This is insane. So it's just, I don't know.
It's crazy. And just like you were talking about earlier, like people, like other motion designers looking into the submissions and trying to get them, following them and stuff. I feel like you're just driving this new wave of how marketing agencies not only post content of what they do, but also get new employees, get future interns. And I feel like you're starting a new wave, and you're getting the benefit of that because you're one of the first ones. Like I realize that now that you're the only like motion designer, or you can say like SaaS like marketing agency that I can see videos from and really feel that one-on-one connection. Because I feel like I'm watching you, like when I watch like some of the live stream or YouTube shorts, I feel like I'm talking to you, like I'm in the conversation there, and it's very interesting. And you're definitely gonna succeed, man. I'm
I
rooting for you too,
appreciate
man. I'm
it,
rooting
man.
for you
Me
too.
too. I'm excited. Things are just, I don't know. Every day it's more and more interesting, and especially now that we've got people on the team, it's really like this is real. Like it's a business now. Like we had our
Yeah.
first, we had a call as the team, all six of us the other day, just end of the day on a Friday, just like, what do we want to do in the next 3 months? Like, what do we want to get done before the end of the year? What are the goals? And I was like, this is happening now. All right. It was just me and Noah that would just like make stuff up before, but now it's all of us sitting here in a Zoom call.
Yep. And have you ever like faced any writer's block? Because I know like when you're like designing, you're creating something new. I've had my struggles of thinking of something original,
Yeah.
something new, and often find myself kind of getting writer's block. Have you ever had that?
all the time. That was another reason why I was with the weekly loops. The one thing that the live stream did help with is that I have to get this done in one sitting. I'm not going to go back and do this. So like, it's got to get done. And so usually what I do, and it's become like a meme in our community at this point, but my captions are like, howdy y'all, I made this animation in 6 hours in After Effects and blah, blah, blah. And it's always like that same format. But, it's just fun to be able to be like, all right, I'm only giving myself an hour to come up with a whole motion script for this thing and just like write down how this is going to be animated. And I have to have something by the end of that hour. And if I don't, then, well, I don't know. I haven't gotten to that point. That's how well it works for me.
Yep.
But that makes it fun.
It's really cool. It reminds me of those like videos I see on YouTube because I've kind of ever since I started watching like your videos and like videos centered around like marketing and stuff, I've gotten so many like recommendations on like web design, UX design, UI design, and I see like sometimes they post challenges like making a website in 3 days and stuff, which is like very crazy to think about. Like, oh yeah, you can make a website in 3 days, but like in reality,
hard.
it takes weeks and weeks of just doing all the different things. And I gotta say, your website for from Ravie, like the main website, it's very cool. Like, did you guys design that yourself, or did you like outsource it to someone?
We designed the whole thing. It's all in Webflow, but we designed the whole thing in Figma, and then we had gone into Webflow to start trying to implement things. But once it got to some of the more complicated, like interactive animations and things, we were like, we could spend a couple weeks trying to figure this out, or we could just get somebody who actually knows how to do this and just get it done. So that was actually our first big purchase. We outsourced to get the website developed after we designed the whole thing. So that was, and they finished it in like 3 days. And I was like, great, we have a website now. This is perfect. This is what I wanted.
So like the whole thing was like using Webflow and maybe like some exporting and like importing stuff,
basically.
right?
I mean, they have all sorts of plugins and things to be able to just make it in Figma, and then it'll just populate all of the elements for you in Webflow. I mean, I don't know as much of how it works, but it seems pretty cool.
Yeah. That's crazy because ironically, that's where I actually made the website for my club. Like I was looking at like free websites to like make something. Like right now, like I don't really have all the money, and I have like to buy like this speaker, like my camera and stuff like that. I kind of use a scholarship to buy it, which was meant for college. But I was like, yeah, I'm gonna use this for college. But in reality, I actually use it to buy a camera and stuff. But I was looking at free. Yeah, cash the bag, you know. And early on, I was trying to find websites, and Google sites was like not bad, but I wanted to make a website that was really cool. So I didn't want it to seem like it was like a school project. And I saw Webflow, and like there were so many things you could do, like on the free version. I'm like, man, I gotta use that. I gotta learn this thing. And that's pretty cool that you're using it, because I assume you were using like on WordPress or something like that.
Webflow. That's it. I mean, and that was one of my hobbies when I was younger. I mean, I always have had entrepreneurial spirit. Like I look back and I can see it in so many different ways from like age 6 on. But when I was like 8 or like ages 8 to 10, I was really into websites, and it was always like really old, the first version of Google sites. And I would make like I made a website about tornadoes and another one about volcanoes. I was very weather oriented, it appears, but just all sorts of random stuff. I don't know.
I can relate to that. I'm in that phase right now. I'm in my website phase because I've been looking at this channel called Flux Academy, and they've been like posting like websites and stuff. And I think they made one on Planco, like their own like travel agency, and I've been using it to like add to my portfolio for NC State College of Design because I'm trying to apply for it, and I know that they have like 10 items to do, and I'm like, okay, I gotta make sure I get this website done by this day so I can submit it, and hopefully they think that my work is amazing or something like that, and I get it.
Get that early admission. There you go.
Yeah, man, I'm trying to prepare on them essays, dude. It's like it comes up November 1st. I'm like, all right, I got this whole month to just finish everything up. I can't focus on anything else. Like I can't do anything about balance. I just has to focus
Dude,
on
I
this.
feel that. I remember exactly what that was like. I did not know why they let me in with some of the submissions I had.
I can actually relate to that because like if I get in, I know from one of my submissions, I'm kind of eerie of like putting it in because it's a video, like it's like a vlog. Because I'm trying to do the
Yeah.
arts and design one because they have more like different things you can do, like
I
videography, for
agree.
example. But I'm not too fond of that vlog, and I don't have anything else that's like much
Well,
better than this. I'm like, I'm just hoping they have a different perspective on it and they like it more. So I'm just
I'll
gonna
just
risk it,
say they
man.
like to see personality. So I think that anything that's going to show that, whether you
Huh?
think it's like a good video or not necessarily, anything that like,
Yeah.
there's probably not going to be many other people that'll put that in. So that would make you stand out, you know?
Huh? You're right.
Also,
Thank
yeah,
you.
and the head of that program is a really cool guy, Derek Ham. He's shaking things up over there, making things interesting. So
Huh? I might invite him
that
on the podcast
that
and
would be cool.
hopefully
I
persuade
mean, he
myself
would
into
say
it.
yes, probably. You just gotta hit him up. He would totally do it.
Honestly, you're right. I think I got his email from someone else, but I'll
Yeah,
see. Maybe that'll be my one week ticket into
I
design.
mean, hit him up.
Hopefully. But again, thank you so much for doing this interview with me. I really
Of
do
course.
appreciate it. You had a like, honestly, you're one of the best podcasts I've had. I know I just started, but in saying that sounds very like not genuine. But I'm being for real. Like this podcast was like this interview was amazing. I love your work. I love the vision of it, the ethics behind it, and I just hope the best
Thanks,
for you,
man.
man.
I
Thank you.
appreciate you. This was fun.